नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतस्य सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरं। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So we are starting the 14th chapter. The 14th chapter is a very interesting chapter in the sense that it is something that helps us to understand what happens to us on a day in, day out basis. So, towards that, this is a very interesting subject matter. The 14th chapter discusses the three modes of material nature. Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, it is also called as. In chapter 13, Krishna explains how the living entity is entangled in Prakriti due to his desire for sense enjoyment. Now, coming to chapter 14, Krishna is explaining how the material energy or this Prakriti is tying up the soul through the three modes of material nature, the three gunas. So, in the 13th chapter discusses about Prakriti and the Jiva and how the Jiva is getting bound by Prakriti. And in 14th chapter, what exactly is it that Prakriti uses to bind the Jivatma to this material world. So, that is a very interesting thing about chapter 14. Chapter 14 has 27 verses, and in the first 4 verses, Krishna speaks about liberation and conditioning of the living entities. That is how living entity gets conditioned, how living entity gets liberated. Actually, that is the whole deal when you go to see. And then from verse 5 to verse 9, how these gunas are binding the Atma, which is otherwise pure in nature. And then from 10 to 13 shlokas, Krishna is speaking about how we can recognize a given guna's supremacy. And then from 14 to 18, acting in a particular guna and dying in that particular guna, what happens. And then towards the end of the chapter, from the 19th shloka to the 27th shloka, Krishna speaks again, taking the discussion in the direction of bhakti. Krishna will speak about how to actually transcend, go above the three modes of material nature, the three gunas. So in chapter 13, Krishna speaks about Purusha Prakriti Stohi Bhunkte Prakriti Jan Gunan Karanam Gunasangosya Sad Asad Yoni Janmasu. That is, Krishna speaks about how Bhunkte Prakriti Jan Gunan, because of the Prakriti Janya Gunas, that is the gunas that we have accrued due to our Prakriti, our nature, and how they will tie you up, and Karanam Gunasangosya Sad Asad Yoni Janmashu. That is, according to the gunas that we acquire, we also acquire Sad and Asad yonis. That means what type of a Garbhapatra we are getting, what type of a womb we get also depends on whether it is Sad or Asad. Means in a good body you are taking birth, or in an animal body, or in a lower body, like that. It is all the gunas are playing a very, very key role in that. So Krishna begins this chapter by speaking. Krishna says that again I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all sages have attained the supreme perfection. So Krishna says, again I am going to declare supreme wisdom. So what is that knowledge again which Krishna says, best of all knowledges, knowing which sages have attained supreme perfection. Now in chapter 9 also we heard this is the most rahasyam hetaduttamam, most confidential knowledge. Then in chapter 13 also Krishna said, now Arjuna, you understand this. Now in 14 again he is going to speak another knowledge, and he says this is topmost. How is it that? Because this chapter 14, the knowledge that is contained in chapter 14 is about the three gunas, and this is a subject matter that has not been touched by Krishna previously. Okay, it specifically deals with the three gunas. And when we are trying to understand the relationship between Prakriti and Jiva, the three gunas play a very, very important part. It is actually how the Jivatma is connected to Prakriti is basically through the three modes, the three gunas. So if one understands how this whole thing acts, then one can devise methods by which to overcome. You see, first you need to understand the working of a certain thing, then only you can conquer it, then only you can overcome it, then only you can control it, right? First of all, we need to know how something works, right? Even when somebody wants to repair a certain machine, what is the basic necessity? The basic necessity is that you need to know how the thing is working. So here we need to know how this whole relationship between Prakriti and Jiva is working. And for that this knowledge is very, very important. So how these three gunas are acting, how they are binding us, and how they can liberate us. So this knowledge is very, very important, and many great sages have become perfect by understanding this. And then Krishna goes on to glorify this knowledge. Krishna says that by becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. Krishna is again speaking about knowing this and transcending this birth and death. That is why he says that not born at the time of creation, not disturbed at the time of dissolution. Meaning, you will transcend this Janana Marana Chakra. Again, as I said, this is the whole deal. The transcendentalist is basically interested in how to get free from the Janana Marana Chakra. So, for that also, understanding of how the three gunas are working, that is very, very important. And then Krishna speaks about the relationship between Prakriti, Jiva and himself. Krishna says, the total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings, O son of Bharata. So, first explains Brahman, and he says Brahman is a source, and it is that Brahman into which Krishna, he impregnates, and then out of that impregnation all the living beings are born. He explains, Sarvayonishu kaunteya murtaya sambhavanti yaha tasam brahma mahadyonir aham bija prathapita. So, our big ego of I am the bija prathapita is actually shattered here. Like Krishna says that into this Brahman I am only impregnating. That means the original seed is sown by Krishna only. You see, this gets explained in detail by Kapila Muni in the Kapila Shiksha portion of the Srimad Bhagavatam. You know, how actual impregnation takes place. You know, that even when there is conjugal relationship and when the male and the female are joined, but the Atma to enter into that particular Bruna or fetus as we call it, that happens by the order of the Lord. That happens by the arrangement of Prakriti, how a living entity will enter, how an Atma will enter. You know. So this is happening only by Prakriti from the dictation of Krishna. Already we understand that aham sarvasya prabhavaha matta sarvam pravartade. Krishna already spoke about this in the 10th chapter. So this matta sarvam pravartade, this also is included there. Sarva yonishu kaunteya. So Krishna says, I am the seed giving father. And then Krishna goes on to explain how the Atma is getting entangled, you know, how in the control of material nature the souls are being placed. So Krishna goes on to explain, material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion and ignorance, which we call as Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, Tamo Guna. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these three modes. So, as soon as the living entity hits the material world, you know, it's like when you make the landing, you touch, you know. So, like that, when the living entity comes into contact with the material nature, immediately the three modes take over. Then the moment you come into contact with material nature, with Prakriti, the three gunas are taking over. And he becomes conditioned by them. You see, conditioned means not the natural situation. Very easy for us to understand. Conditioned means not natural. We call air condition. What is that? The air is actually in its own state, it is something, but conditioned air can either be hotter than it is or colder than it is. So basically changing something from its original position, that is only called conditioning. So when we say conditioned soul, in Sanskrit we call it Baddhatma. You know, Baddhatma means he is connected, he is linked, he is tied, he is bound. We can use all these terms. You know, connected and linked to the material nature through the three gunas, which is causing you to be tied down, bound up, anything. You know, every relationship that we make in this material nature, in the material world, is resulting in bondage. You see. So this material nature, it consists of these three gunas. So why is that he is getting conditioned by the three gunas? It is because the living entity, the jiva, that is you and me, we have desired to enjoy independently. You see, we all wanted independence, just like India wanted independence from the British, you know. And then what happened? I don't want to get into that. Generally what I am saying is everybody wants to be independent, you know. Those people, those parents who have grown up children, they will know. They want independence. And then what we say, no, this kind of independence is not good for you. You need some guidance like that. But because the Jivatma wanted to enjoy independently from Krishna, what happened is that he is sent to this material world to come in contact with material nature, to be bound by the three modes, the three gunas, and then he will have the illusion of enjoyment. He will have an illusion of enjoyment. He actually doesn't enjoy, but he thinks he is enjoying. Because we are coming here itself with a false identity. We have a body, which is actually not our real identity. It is a false identity. That is why Acharyas call it false ego. Ahamkara means ego. Midhyahankara means false ego. Ahamkara, aham, who am I? Ahamkara. It means the understanding or identification of I, what am I, So Mithyahankara or false ego is that I am this body, I am the enjoyer, I am the cause, I am the doer. These are all Mithyahankara, false ego. And what is real ego? Real ego is to understand that I am not this body. I am part and parcel of Krishna. I am servant of Krishna. When I act to please Krishna, I become automatically pleased. This is real ego. This is properly situated ahamkara. You see? So proper ahamkara is nothing but humility. And ahankar, I am something, I am big, I am the doer, I have done this, I have done that, I am doing this, I am going to do this, I will do this. All these things based on this body, based on this brain, which we think is the reason for all our greatness and all our achievements and endless, all false ego. You see? And based on that false ego, what happens is that the three gunas also will play accordingly. You see? So the three gunas will actually feed the false ego. Just like when there is a raging fire, you add, you add some ghee to it, some oil to it, or easily identifiable for people in the Middle East, add some petrol to it. It will poof, it will glow and blow much bigger. Same way, the three gunas will add to the fire of false ego. And then Krishna says, how it is affecting. So then Krishna will say, O sinless one, Anagha, he is calling Arjuna. He will tell him, O Arjuna, O sinless Arjuna, the mode of goodness or Sattva Guna, being purer than others, is illuminating and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. You see, Sattva Guna, like the word Sattva, means good. So it is better than Rajo Tamo Gunas. Like among the three gunas, the one that is placed on top is Sattva Guna. And why it is illuminating? In Sattva Guna, you will gain knowledge. You will not do pap. You won't do any sinful activity. At the same time, you will also become content and happy in this material world. You see, with that sense of, with that knowledge, I get some happiness, so I am good like this, Generally, these philosophers, philanthropists and all these people. I am doing good, I feel good, So that is Sattva Guna. But what is the downside of Sattva Guna? Krishna explains, become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. There is attachment to Sukha. Oh, I am good, I am happy, like that. And I know what is Dharma. I will not do any Papa. I will do Dharma in such a way that I will continue to have good enjoyment in this material world. So that is Sattva Guna. Okay. But what happens is that Because the Sattva-guna person feels that I am better than the others, he becomes conditioned. He becomes conditioned to that, by that feeling that I am better than others, I am situated happier than others, I am, when I say I am better than others, I mean by quality I am better than others, and by my material situation I am better than others, like that. So that also is, so you will get stuck to that paradigm, and when you become happy and satisfied and content with status quo, it is very difficult to shift gear. So Sattva-guna does that. Then Krishna goes on to speak about Rajoguna. He says, the mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti. And because of this, embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive actions. No wonder it is called Rajoguna, mode of passion, you see. Because so much of desires I have, so much of longing my heart has got. I need to get this, I need to acquire that. This will make me happy, this will make me happy. Let me get this also, let me get this also. So that will make us work, All creative impetus comes out of Rajoguna. All creative impetus come out of Rajoguna. Why? Because I want to acquire, I want to achieve, I want to get this, I want to get that. And what happens by doing that? You become bound to material fruitive actions, kamya karma. That is, you are working, you get result, you get a good result, you become attached, then you know that if I work harder, I will get a bigger result. You see, so that just keeps on, it's like the multiplier effect, we say in economics, the multiplier effect. So I worked this much, I got this much. Now I'll work even harder, so I'll get something bigger. Like that. So mode of passion will egg you on to do more and more and more. You see? And what happens is that with this you have a bigger chance of degradation. And then Krishna goes on to explain the third, the lowest guna. Krishna says, O son of Bharata, know that the mode of darkness, born of ignorance, is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The results of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. You see? So, tamoguna, tamas means darkness. So, tamoguna means that mode which will push you more and more into darkness. What happens? You are deluded, and result is that madness, indolence, and sleep. So now we all understand what are the three modes, right? And out of these three modes, we understand this mode of ignorance or tamoguna produces nothing but more ignorance. You see, tamoguna's multiplier effect is very, very dangerous. You go from darkness to darkness. Now you may argue that darkness means it's already dark. How can it be multiplied? Good question. But only those who have gone through the process of darkness multiplying, they will understand. How things can get worse and then worse and then worse. And then when you think that I have fallen to the worst position, you can still fall further. This is the result of tamoguna. And these are the three things, these are the three modes that is governing all the actions of the living entities. These three gunas are governing all our actions. O son of Bharata, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness, passion conditions one to fruitive action, and ignorance covering one's knowledge binds one to madness. So one is binding to happiness, one is binding to kamya karma, the other one is binding one to madness, pramada it is called. Now you think how madness can bind. If you have noticed, when you walk through the streets of India, you can find many people who have lost their mind, mad people. And you and me, as a sane person, we will know how pathetic that mad person's condition is. But the mad person is completely oblivious to everything. You see, he is just in his own world. You see, so binding to madness. Tamoguna binds one to madness, and Rajoguna will bind you to fruitive action. Keep on working, keep on with the impetus to work more and more and more and more and more. Have you ever thought, why would the richest man in India would still want to work so much? We may all think, if I make this much money, then I am going to stop working, I will retire, and then I will, relax, whatever. If I am spiritually inclined, I will do something spiritual. If I am otherwise inclined, I may want to travel the world, I want to go on cruise, or whatever nonsense. But the thing is, we will think, oh no, I want to put a stop here, and then I want to. But you see, even the richest person, we may wonder, because they will say his net worth is this many thousand lakh crores, this, that, this many billion dollar, blah, 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 all those things. And still you will find these people are working, moving on and on and on. And for sure we can see for ourselves that they are not going to be able to use all that money, however way they do it, But still, why? So Rajoguna is binding us to more and more fruitive activity. You see, and then that is one paradigm you are stuck to, difficult to get off. So when one is contaminated by Sattva Guna, I am very self-satisfied, so I don't listen to the dictation of Paramatma who is with me. And when I am contaminated by Rajoguna mode of passion, I myself am so loud that I cannot hear the best friend Paramatma. And when I am struck by Tamoguna, I am simply too inert, too ignorant and mad that I cannot hear the Paramatma. You see? So, all these three things are actually stopping us from listening to the Paramatma who is sitting with us. You see? One does it very subtly, one in an even very gross way, the other one in a totally negative way. Any which way, we are not able to hear what is the best thing for us. The best advice for us, we are unable to take that advice, listen to that advice for differing reasons. But the point is that we are not able to take the advice. So we should be very careful. And then, how does one mode become predominant? Does one mode become predominant? Krishna explains, sometimes the mode of goodness becomes predominant, defeating the mode of passion and ignorance, O son of Bharata. Sometimes mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance, and other times ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always a competition for supremacy. So, as Krishna says, we all understand when we study these three modes of material nature, when we study the three gunas, we understand that we go through all these symptoms intermittently. Some days are more sattva than others, some days are more rajas than others, some days are simply more tamas than others. Krishna explains that because these three modes are always competing with each other for supremacy in our self. You see? So that is why you will find that Sattva Guna, people in Sattva Guna, whenever you want to do something very spiritual, you are told that, you wake up very early in the morning, 2 hours before sunrise, which is called the Brahma Muhurta. So, that is a very good time to do spiritual activities. And then as the day progresses, the rajas will start predominating. So when you reach office at 10 o'clock, your juices are flowing full, you want to work, And by the time Sayam Sandhya falls, when the evening dusk falls, after that, as the evening proceeds into night and midnight, you get all the tamoguna tendencies. You see? So, this is how it works through the day in each and every person. And then Krishna explains how these three gunas are manifested. Krishna says, the manifestation of the mode of goodness can be experienced when all gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge. Sattva guna means some knowledge you will acquire. When there is an increase in the mode of passion, symptoms of great attachment, fruitive activity, intense endeavor and uncontrollable desire and hankering develop. As I told earlier already, because I work, I get result, I get attached. This is something we have been discussing right from chapter 2. So, uncontrollable desire. That is, I satiate one desire, another desire is ready. I satiate that desire, another two are ready. By the time I finish one, it has become 4. By the time I finish the next, it has become 8. So, at any given point of time in a normal man's life, he will have hundreds of thousands of desires that are not yet fulfilled. You see? And hankering, intense hankering for various things. All showing how Rajoguna is manifesting. And when there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, O son of Kuru, darkness, inertia, madness and illusion are manifested. So, when you are illusioned, when you don't have any energy to do anything, when you feel mad, we must understand that Tamoguna is acting. Then Krishna goes on to explain what happens when you die in this particular mode of nature. When one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains to pure higher planets of the great sages. You see, in Sattva-guna, if one passes away, we can go to Janaloka, Tapaloka. To that level, we can go. As we know, Bhu, Bhuvar, Suvar, Mahar, Jana, Tapa, Satya. So, Janaloka, Tapaloka, Satyaloka. That is actually the Upari Lokas, where as the Lokas become more and more subtle, more and more Sattva-guna is predominant in those Lokas, so you can reach there. When one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth among those engaged in fruitive activities. Come back to Martya Loka, come back to Bhuloka or to the lower Lokas. And when one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom. So, Punar Mushiko Bhava, you will become. Again become a rat. That's what will happen. So, we don't want to become a rat again. So, we should always remember that mode of ignorance should be overcome, mode of passion should be overcome, and come to the mode of goodness and then transcend that mode as well. That is how a devotee or a transcendentalist is supposed to work. And that is the whole idea of studying the three modes. Okay? Krishna goes on to explain the results of acting in each of these modes. The result of pious action is pure and it is said to be in the mode of goodness. So, with some piety when we act, we get some good result, that is in Sattva Guna. When action done in the mode of passion results in misery, that is the nature. You see, you act very passionately. So, now you may think that acting passionately I am getting so much material facilities. Actually, we are all enjoying all these whatever material facilities currently we are enjoying are all the results of our work based on the influence by the mode of passion only. But we all realize that these things also give us misery. So, action done in the mode of passion will result in misery, and action performed in the mode of ignorance results in foolishness. So, sometimes when Tamoguna overtakes us, we do something, then we realize that it was a very, very foolish thing to do. Under the influence of something, we may do something, in the under the influence of intoxication, people do so many things. And then they repent, saying that it was a very foolish thing to do. But what is the big deal? Again they become intoxicated and again they will do the wrong thing all over again. This is the multiplier effect of tamoguna. So always something you do, we perform while we are under the mode of tamas, under the mode of ignorance, the result will be foolishness. So how do we as aspiring transcendentalists, as aspiring bhaktas, how do we do this? How do we actually overcome? Now that we are discussing in depth the three modes and how they are acting, what is the impact, what is the result, and what is the destination. Right? We have discussed all these things. So, what is it that we can do? So, whenever we are performing acts of bhakti, we should know that at least bare minimum we should try to do those things on the platform of sattva guna. Because anything that we do in rajoguna immediately affects our consciousness adversely. Always affects our consciousness adversely whenever we do something in rajoguna. So, how can we do always in the sattva guna? So, our Acharya Srila Prabhupada explains that when we hear about Krishna, we will gradually become freed from darkness, we will gradually become free from ignorance, and we will be able to come above the platform of ignorance, above the platform of passion or rajoguna, and then coming to the platform of sattva guna. Shravanam about Krishna is actually the best way. It gradually purifies. And this Shravanam can actually give us attraction for Krishna. You must understand that. You know, Shravanam, hearing about a person again and again and again. Even materially, when you hear somebody's greatness again and again and again, then you will think or you will say that I have become a fan of so and so. He is so great, you know. Something like that we do. But just imagine hearing about Krishna gradually, what happens is from tamoguna, we will get elevated to rajoguna, and then we will get elevated to sattvaguna. You know, many of you would have heard about that thief, you know, who saw a picture of Krishna with such beautiful ornaments, and he was thinking, because he is a thief, he doesn't know about Krishna. So he is asking somebody, where can I find this child, you know, because he makes a grand plan that this child is so adorned with so much of ornaments. If I can get this child in my hand, I can steal all the ornaments. Right? And then just seeing that, and then he will go and ask somebody, that person will say, you go to Vrindavan, you will find this child there. So by hearing, he will find out where Vrindavan is. He will ultimately reach Vrindavan and he will ultimately reach Krishna himself. Although he was a thief. You see. And another wonderful example, everyone knows how Rukmani Devi got married to Krishna. You know. From childhood, she has not seen Krishna. Not like the gopis in Vrajabhumi who had the great opportunity of actually seeing Krishna face to face. Srimati Rukmani Devi never saw Krishna, but simply she heard that, you know, there is this boy called Krishna. He was in Vrajabhumi. He did all these great acts. You know, he was killing this asura, that asura. And then he went to Mathura, and then he killed his own uncle, and before killing his uncle, he killed that huge elephant. Then he killed so many great mallas, and so much of valor and all the great actions of Krishna she heard. And then she decides in her heart that if somebody becomes my pati, that will be only this person. This Krishna only becomes my pati. I don't have any other pati. She simply decides, you know. And when her brother is trying to get her married off to some unscrupulous fellow, immediately what she does, she writes a patra, a letter to Krishna. In that she mentions that I have heard about you. You see? Simply by hearing about Krishna, she chose him to be her husband. And until that time, she goes to Ambika's temple and she is coming out of the temple. And Krishna is coming like a lion, you know, to capture his prey and take away. That's how it is explained in the Purana, you know. Just like how a lion will jump and grab the prey, like that he came, you know, in a chariot that was faster than wind, you know. And just like that he grabbed Rukmani and took her in his chariot. Only then she is seeing Krishna. You see. So, hearing about Krishna is something so great. Simply by hearing, we can overcome this Rajoguna, Tamoguna, Satoguna also. So, that is why Acharyas say hearing is the process, and that process is the most important one. Krishna goes on to explain, from the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. From the mode of ignorance develops foolishness, madness and illusion. Those who are situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live in earthly planets, and those in the abominable mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. So, either you will get an animal body being in the mode of Tamoguna, or we may be demoted to one of the hellish planets. And in hellish planets, we must understand that the gross level of material enjoyment is much more. You see? So, whatever gross level enjoyment that you see in this world is nothing compared to the gross level of enjoyment that is found in the lower planets. And actually, that is, when I say lower level of grosser enjoyment, I just want to point out one example so we clearly understand what is a gross enjoyment. You know, if you have seen pigs behaving, if you go to a pig pen, you will find that it is full of dirt, and the pigs will roll in the dirt, and to the extent that pigs will eat the excreta of the other pig, and they will be seem as if they are enjoying it. Actually, they enjoy it so much, you see. But when we see it, the immediate reaction is of, you know, you feel outraged, you feel like vomiting. It is so horrible. Bibhatsa, as we call it, you know. It is so horrendous to even watch it. But the pig is enjoying it. So when we speak about grosser levels of enjoyment, this is what I mean. So Tamoguna will bring us down to levels like that. And then now Krishna is coming to see all these things are there. How these three gunas are all pervasive and they control everything, and you are like, you know, bound by them. Now, as we move to the final section of the chapter, now Krishna will start speaking about how to overcome these modes. So then Krishna says, when one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work than these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord who is transcendental to these modes, he attains my spiritual nature. So first step, to observe that the modes are working. Modes are working on us. Second step is to understand Krishna's position. Two things we understand, we can go back to Krishna's world. This is what Krishna says. And what can we look forward if we transcend the modes? when the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and other distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. So, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. These things, Dukkha Dosha Anudarshanam. Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. These four dukkhas you will not have to see again. So you may think, what is so great? What is a big dukkha about Janma? Again, if we refer to Kapila Shiksha and Srimad Bhagavatam, it explains what kind of trouble the living entity goes through while he is in the womb of his mother. So Janma, don't think it is something very, very simple. It is not only the great pain that the pregnant mother undergoes until the point of delivery, it is also that living entity inside that bhruna, inside that fetus, and then as it grows, the 9 months a human child spends inside is actually very, very horrific. They say that when they put somebody in an MRI scan, they ask that person to do that fetal position, and I have heard from people that it is one of the most horrible experiences in life to be put in that kind of some kind of a capsule where you are in darkness and you are in a fetal position. They say by the time you come out of that, you feel as if you have gone through hell and back. So imagine that's what we have all done within the womb of our mothers. So Janma is also very, very, very painful process. So Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. Vyadhi we all know. Jara also, as we are all going towards Jara, we will understand. Creaky bones and not working eyes. You remove this, then all you see is something blurred. So one by one everything starts becoming dimmer and duller and all those things. So Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, Dukkha. So these four distress you don't have to go through if one can overcome these three modes. So then Arjuna is asking Krishna, "Oh my Lord, by which symptoms is one who is known transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior and how does he transcend the modes?" So again Krishna from verse 22 to 25, in summary, he will explain to Arjuna. He will say, he who does not hate illumination, attachment and delusion when they are present or long for them when they disappear. You see? When they are present, he is not attached. When they are disappeared, he is not longing for it. Who is unwavering, undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, and he is situated in the self and regards happiness and distress alike. He who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone and a piece of gold with an equal eye. Krishna says, Samaloshrascha kanchanaha. That means Kanchana, gold, and Loshtra means mud, stone. Somebody who can see both mud and stone as equal. Why? Because both are matter basically. Both will not stand the test of time. So at that level of understanding, you see both as same. One has no more value than the other. Like that. Okay. One who is equal towards the desirable and the undesirable. So something desirable comes also okay. Something undesirable comes okay. Why? Because both have no existence beyond a certain period of time. In Tamil there is a saying, Iduvum kadandu sellum. This also will pass. You see. Every situation in life is like that. Anything great happiness, that also will pass. Some distress will come, that also will pass. So steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature. So, these will all ring a bell when we keep reading the Bhagavad Gita, because similar qualities, characteristics, Krishna has already discussed in the previous chapters. And then, closing the chapter, Krishna discusses bhakti. The last two shlokas, Krishna speaks about bhakti. He says, Mamchayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samati hityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Mamchayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. Avyabhicharena. Vyabhichari means, one meaning of vyabhichari is prostitute. Means one who has loyalty to anyone and everyone. Avyabhicharena means loyal only to Krishna. Okay? So, avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. So, doing bhakti yoga, doing seva in bhakti yoga in avyabhichari bhava. Unfailing in all circumstances. Sagunan samatityaitan. And so, by doing that, he will transcend the gunas and come to the level of Brahman. Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So, coming to the level of Brahman means he can see everything equally. And then Krishna goes on to say, Brahmano hi pratishtaham amrtasyasya yasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukhasya ekantikasya cha. I am the basis of impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable and eternal, and is a constitutional position of ultimate happiness. So this whole thing is, the transcendental situation begins with Brahman. We must understand that. That coming to that level of Brahman understanding. That is the fundamental or the stepping stone of above material on transcendental. That's first stepping stone is Brahman. And Krishna says, Brahmanohi pratishtha aham. Actually, I am the base of that Brahman. And it is Amrita. It is immortal. Avyaya, imperishable. Shashvatasya, eternal. Dharmasya, that is also Dharma. Sukhasya ekantikasya cha. So, that ultimate happiness is on the platform of Brahman. And the Acharyas are explaining that actually Krishna is the concentrated form of Brahman, just as the sun is the intensified form of light. Although Krishna and Brahman are non-different, Krishna is the support of Brahman. Basically, the completeness of Brahman is only Krishna. You see? That is why the understanding of Brahman is at the most fundamental or the stepping stone level, and then one moves to understanding of Paramatma, the Sthaniya Paramatma who is situated in the heart of every living entity, and the ultimate understanding is about Krishna, because he is the source of this Brahman, this imperishable, immortal, all pervasive, everything. Krishna is the basis of that. Okay? So by understanding that, we can actually become transcendental to these three modes of material nature. And once we transcend the three modes of material nature, then we can very easily become situated on the level of Brahman. And from there, we can perform devotional service for Krishna and become free and go back to Krishna's abode, where there is only happiness. Hare Krishna. Thus, chapter 14 gets concluded.